Atlanta, guess what? The Good Moms are coming to your city on April 26th. We're pulling up at the Black Effect Podcast Festival.
That's right. We'll be hitting the stage with other hot podcasts like R&B Money, Trap Nerds, Naked Sports, and Sarah Jakes.
And if you've ever been to a Good Moms Bad Choices show, you know it gets real bad. And we have some special guests. So I'm so excited to meet our Atlanta tribe. Make sure you pull up April 26th to the Black Effect Podcast Festival and get your tickets at blackeffect.com/podcast festival. See you there. Hey tribe, happy Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. This episode is due for a trigger warning. We are getting into some deep topics about sexual assault, sexual abuse, and we wanted to brief you before watching this episode. I encourage you to listen. It's very informative, it's very honest, and hopefully helpful.
Once upon a time, there was a good old traditional housewife. She cooked, she cleaned, cared for her children and the man of the house, and of course, she didn't talk back. She was both obedient and soft by nature. She was a good woman who always made good choices.
Shut that shit off.
We're Good Moms Bad Choices.
Two single moms
Who said fuck the patriarchy
shared all their bad choices
and found out they weren't so bad after all.
We're experts,
oversharers,
and your new besties.
Sit back and enjoy the ride. Welcome back to Good Moms Bad Choices. I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy hump day, y'all.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
You look cute.
Thanks.
You're giving Tantrika boss bitch.
You know, I had a client today.
Did you wear this in your client meeting?
No, but I must have been feeling the energy because I put this on. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put a blazer on. Yeah, I'm having a good week. I'm just, seasons are switching. I had a good weekend with Luna this weekend. We went to Alvin Ailey Ballet. It was her first time.
Oh yeah, I saw. I'm so mad. When I was looking online, the tickets were so expensive. They probably didn't sell out, and so you could just walk in.
No, what happened is I bought them online. I was going to drop her off to my mom because I wanted her to experience it, and then I was like, let me just fucking go. And I found a ticket. It was too good to be true. It was orchestra for $68, and then I got there, and they're like, oh, StubHub's been scamming people all day, so we've been selling tickets for $25. So I'm like, she's like, you can dispute it. And I was like, fine, I'll just buy the ticket. $25 though. But it was on the balcony. I saw everything. It was beautiful. I was tired as fuck though. We left like a park birthday party that drove 2 hours to get to. Then I went to the ballet. But at the end we saw Angela Bassett, and my mom was like, and then I was like, and then she was like, and then we were all like, and then here goes Luna. That's the girl from Wakanda. I was like, girl, that's Tina Turner. I was like, look at the fucking age difference up in here, talking about that's the lady from Wakanda.
I mean, well, that's the beauty of her career, is that it's spanned so many fucking years. She's been so many different characters.
Like we're all starstruck.
And
my
meaningful to different people at different stages in their life.
Yeah, that was like pretty, I felt like I saw a black royalty.
You did.
So that was
black royalty.
Yeah, me, my mom, and Luna were all hype.
Oh, that's so cute.
So it was really cute. And then yesterday we watched Moana 2, which wasn't as good because it's not as good.
I saw it.
Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't do the music. I only know that because Luna told me.
Okay.
And then we rode an 8-mile bike ride.
8 miles? You and Luna?
Yeah.
Where the fuck did you go?
Danielle's house.
What? You rode there and rode back.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It wasn't that bad. She was.
I'm proud of her.
Yeah, she was like, it's hot. I was like, it's gonna get hotter, so you might as well.
Did you stop for waters and ice cream?
We stopped for one water, and I pumped her tire. Poor thing. I think she was trying really hard, but the fucking tire was a little flat. So I was like, is that better? She's like, yeah, much better. I'm like, damn, I have you.
Out here, fucking obstacles, and you're like, get it together.
Literally in the street.
Her first fucking 10-mile ride.
She's done a long one before. We were in the street, in the bike lane too. I'm like, looking behind me, please God, nothing happened to her while I'm fucking biking her 8 miles.
Oh my God.
So it was fun. We had a good time. Then we went to dinner, and she told me secrets from her school, and I was like, perfect, we're best friends. Tell me everything.
No.
So we had a good weekend. So I'm happy.
That's cool.
How was your weekend?
It was good. We saw Cleo Soul, so that was great.
Oh, yeah, we did that too. I had the weekend of the arts.
Yeah, that was great. And then what did I do the day after that?
Birthday party.
The birthday party. I drove 2 hours to the birthday party. Shout out to Neerlin. Happy birthday, Julia. We love you. I live far as fuck, so everywhere I go is going to be that. And then yesterday I did something that I've been wanting to do, and I'm happy to share that I finally did it. You heard me talk about this on our episode with Nicole Russell, Generational Silence, about interviewing my grandmother and my great aunt and my mom. And so I finally did it.
How was it?
It was really good. I'm very drained today though. Like I know that like I take on energy, but I was literally sitting on the floor in the middle of all of them as they're sharing and talking, and it was good. My grandmother really came, like I asked her, like I opened up the space and was like, this is a safe space. Please just be as honest as you can. And she was very, very honest. She shared things with me that I've never heard her say before. And it was just interesting. Like I had spoken about this the other day that I listened to this episode with Mel Robbins and Dr. Gabor, and he was talking about epigenetics and all the childhood trauma, and he was also talking about how siblings have different experiences in the same household, and a lot of times siblings are kind of discarded and being like, oh yeah, like we were raised by the same parents, like what the fuck are you talking about? And this was a prime example of being in the same household. Obviously my grandmother and my great aunt are 9 years apart, so they definitely got different
parents,
versions of, they got different parents, they had different experiences, and it was challenging for my aunt, who's younger than my grandmother, to hear my grandmother talk about their father, because that's not the experience that she had with her father. My grandmother had a very traumatic childhood with her dad, and my great aunt had a really great experience with her dad.
So interesting.
So I saw her getting emotional, and like, you know, she said, like, I don't want to sit here and defend him because I can't, because that's not my experience. But all I can say is, like, it breaks my heart that you had that experience, and that wasn't my experience. But I do feel like this, like, urge to defend him, but I'm not going to. So it got heavy. It got heavy, and I realized I got to do more. Like we were sat there for 3 hours. It was 3 hours,
And still,
like I feel like I got to like I didn't even get to like the meat of it. You know, it was like I was really trying to document their journey from like New Mexico, to California, and like also weave in like what was going on during those times. And I know now that like I need to sit with my grandmother one-on-one too and talk to her, because it's a little bit different when you're sitting in front of your daughter and
everybody's there.
So I feel really inspired to continue the conversation. My grandmother was like, please don't share this on the TV screens.
No, Graham, not the TV
Don't
screen.
share it on the TV screen. Don't stay. She's like, don't. Yesterday's conversation was so stupid and silly. It was so
She
stupid.
said that?
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
I don't know why you want to know any of that stuff. But just don't share it on the TV screens, okay? And I was like, I'm not going to share it on the TV screens, Tawny. I'll only share it with your permission, and I don't really have a desire to share it. I really just did this for our family. Yeah. So anyway, this morning I woke up. I was so tired. I tried to wake up like 4 times, and I could not. So this morning I finally got in the shower. I saged. I was like, maybe I need to sage some of this motherfucking energy off of me. That didn't work. But I'm here. I'm sitting in our seat, and I feel better.
Well, at least you did it.
I
You did it. It's recorded. You can always reference it back. You can keep doing it. It'll make it easier the second time.
Yeah.
I have one great aunt left. I'm like, do I need to go
You
to
should.
Philly and like this one? She's Jehovah. I don't know how open she's going to be. I feel like all the Jehovah's are closed.
You might be surprised how much people are waiting to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I feel I didn't even think about her as an option, but she's like my last oldest living relative, so I have to. Yeah. So thank you for that inspiration, and I'm glad that you did it.
Yeah.
It's important.
Well, anyway, you guys, we have a special guest here today. I'm really excited because this month, if you didn't know, is Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. And I met this beautiful woman that's sitting next to me a few years ago at the model experience. Shout out to Ashley Runway, and I was hosting a panel, and we connected, and I've been watching her journey over the last 6 months, and I'm so inspired by you. So I want to welcome to the show Lisa J. Phillips, who is the host of From Now On podcast, which is a podcast that shares people that have been victims of sexual assault within the entertainment industry, in the arts, and in film, TV, sports. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Super excited to be here.
Yeah.
Finally.
So I was super inspired by just the work that you've been doing. I've been seeing all the clips on Instagram, and you're really going there, like with a lot of with your story, which we'll get into, and just all the people that are sharing and speaking out about these horrible experiences that they've had. And I think that so many women and people have, not just in the entertainment industry, but just in just living and existing. So yeah, can you give us like a little bit of insight into like your journey to the podcast? I know that you had a whole career before being a podcaster as a model and an agent, I think, or is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe tell us a little bit about your journey into your podcast.
Well, you just said it. You were like, people just want to share. You'd be surprised at how much people want to share when she was talking about your grandmother. And that's what I found, is that people connect over sharing their stories. And so, like you said, I was in the fashion business since I was a teenager, traveled all around the world and loved it. And I felt like I built myself up to a certain level as an agent and then a manager and opened my own business and all that stuff. And I just like, God, I just want to do something that just means something. It's something that is courageous and brave, and just something where I can just step out of this person who I've been and just become somebody a lot more powerful. Because I knew it was in me. And I had this story that I've been telling little bits by bits. And then everyone's doing podcasting now. So I was like, I just want to do a podcast. That's the way I want to start sharing my story. But I felt like I needed to share in a way that felt comfortable and I felt supported with another survivor to share as well. So I started this podcast where it's called From Now On, where I share my story, but I also open up conversations, deeper conversations about other survivors' abuse and assaults that have happened to them on their way of building their careers, or, ambitious women. They come up against powerful men. And a lot of times, we are in situations where it's compromising and assaults happen or abuse.
Yeah,
and then
we feel powerless. And so for our audience, so that you guys know, Lisa, she is a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein. And, Jeffrey committed suicide in 2019. I think he was
suicide
or whatever. Yeah. Suicide. Do you not believe that he committed suicide?
You believe somebody killed him? In prison?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I believe. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Yeah, just what I think.
I mean, he probably had a lot of people's secrets on his.
Oh, right. On his.
Yeah, it was in their
That
best.
was the whole basis of Jeffrey, was that he was recording everything on powerful people. Yeah. So he knew everyone's secrets.
What a cynical little crazy fuck.
Yeah.
How did it all start? Like, because I think some people think like it's sexual assault is like one way. I know it's very layered and it's nuanced. So what was your journey into this situation with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I just think like nowadays, like people are learning about assault. Everyone's talking about it on podcasts or being educated. More so, I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago now, when this happened. So I didn't know anything about this type of abuse or even what to look out for. I always was naive and just thought everyone was, I want to help you out. Of course they want to help me out. And I just didn't know, when you're younger, who to really trust.
Yeah, who you can trust.
Yeah,
and then you meet like a wealthy, powerful man who's charming and nice and listens and thoughtful. And I think that's like a lot of the grooming that happens, where it's confusing for people, where they're like, wait, did I participate in this? Like, is it my fault? Like, I think I was reading some stats on sexual assault, and I was actually fucking astonished.
Oh yeah, you'll be shocked.
And I want to just read through some of this stuff for our audience before we get into this, because I had no idea some of these stats. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will be raped at some point in their lives.
1 in 5 compared to 1 in 70. Whoa.
Yeah. 81% of women and 43% of men report experiencing some sort of sexual harassment during their lifetime. And like we were talking about this, I was like, 81 seems low.
Yeah.
Actually.
I feel like 99.9% of women.
Approximately 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced some sort of sexual violence other than rape. And this is the stuff that really was crazy, is around 68% of sexual assaults are not reported to law enforcement. And 98% of rapists will never spend a day in jail or prison. Like 98%.
Well, most of them get away with it because you
Right.
don't report it.
There's no
And there's so
reporting.
much shame around it. First of all, you don't report it, and you have to do it pretty quickly after to do the rape kit. And a lot of times, you just have so much shame. Most people report it or start talking about it 6 or 7 years later.
Right.
That's the average.
Wow.
Many years later. And it's usually because you hear someone else's story, or you watch like a TV show and you see like similar dialogue. Wait a second, that happened to me.
Right. You have to almost like see it played out to understand that it's actually
Right.
you've experienced that.
Well, I mean, I knew what happened to me, in 2020. Sorry, in 2000. I knew what happened to me. I was aware of it. But you have shame, you suppress it, you don't know who to talk to about it. And it wasn't until, women started speaking out about Jeffrey Epstein that I felt comfortable to be like, okay, wait a second, that's what happened to me. And then wanting to reach out to them and talk about it and see where our stories kind of lined up. And, the stories, according with this guy, were all the same, whether you were underage or not.
And again, they were in these stats. They were saying that most assault happens between the ages of 18 and 34. How old were you when?
Wow, 18 and 34.
How old were you when this started happening to you?
2021.
2020, 20 or 21 years old.
Yes.
Okay. And I was reading, when I was reading your story about how you met him, which was, I think you had a shoot in the Virgin Islands, and then a friend of yours invited you to his private island or something, or his island that he was renting.
Yeah, well, that's so crazy about it, because most people who are invited into Jeffrey Epstein's web were through Ghislaine Maxwell, the underage girls in Florida,
Right.
or you knew him or introduced through another friend. That's just the way he operated. It was like, oh, hey, I know
Referrals.
this friend. You
Right.
know, he's a mentor of mine. Come meet him. But I was just on a photo shoot in the islands, right? I was just minding my own business and on a photo shoot. And the other young model was like, hey, we have a day off. I have a friend who owns an island right here. Do you want to go? And I'm thinking, well, I just want to get away from the photographer that I'm on a shoot with.
Right, because
the
he's a little weird, right?
The photographer was also like creeping into my bed at night, you
Oh,
know? And I
God.
was just like so freaked out. And he was a younger, like hot photographer.
But still.
But still, right? And so when she invited me, I was like, yeah, I want to get away from him. Not knowing that
You're going to another predator's
Going
house.
into a whole other web.
whole different type of predator. So yeah, and we just took a boat over to his island and just thought I was this meeting like this wealthy guy who kind of just kept to himself and, you know, played in the pool. But I observed some things when I was on the island that I probably wasn't supposed to see.
Like
And
what?
he introduced me to someone who just had walked up, who later ended up being, these young girls were saying this man had assaulted them, you know.
They said that during the
Well-
at the island, they had still told you this.
Well, he's part of royalty in England. So, you know, I just saw some things that had happened. And then later on, when I got home, he relentlessly called me over and over and over. And I, in hindsight, think that the reason why he did was because I saw things. And he wanted to kind of keep me in his orbit.
To make sure you were good, like
Yeah,
you're not
make
gonna
sure
say-
I was good.
Did the other girls that you saw there, or were like obviously young? Were you like, God, they look even younger than me?
Well, no, because I was young.
Yeah, so you're like, I'm so mature.
And do we ever say, how old are you? How old are you? We just
Right.
assume we're all young.
Right,
So
right.
I just assumed they were around the same age as me.
yeah.
I didn't know at the time, or even if I had asked them, it was a while ago. Maybe they said they were older. I don't know. But I didn't know they were 15, 16, or 17 at that time.
I mean, I think all girls are kind of like at young. First of all, we're like we're groomed by society at just immediately. Like we were literally groomed by society by like boys will be boys, or you know, older men. You know, like there's just like an understanding that you just be quiet and you show
Right.
up and like you smile and nod and like if you're here, then you're lucky.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
You're lucky and you're mature and just keep it hush
Yeah,
hush.
like you're chosen.
Well, they want you to feel
You've
like
been
you're
chosen. Not everyone gets to come here.
or if someone's handsy with you, it's because you're beautiful and that's normal and like
Well, that's a sense of power.
Yeah.
So anyone, the music industry, the modeling business, fashion, arts, entertainment, sports, whenever you have that power dynamic, especially when they're 10, 15, 20 years older than you. It's always this power dynamic. So you are, as a woman, usually just kind of quiet. You kind of go along with things because you're scared to speak out, you know, or if someone touches you, you don't know how to react in that moment.
We're not trained on that.
No,
We're
we
trained
just
on
don't know.
smiling and keeping it cute. Because if we blew up, then you'd be causing a scene, and that'd be crazy. And then why are you dressed like that? Why are you there?
Yeah, exactly. And they also play on your dreams. So a big one is, okay, like Jeffrey was like that with me. What do you want to do? Like, what's your big dream? And, you know, I had super big dreams and I was ambitious at that time. So they play on that ambition, right? And so he kind of used that, you know, later on. But he was asking those questions in the beginning. And I thought, oh my gosh, this man who cares about me. He's asking questions. And most men don't ask you about anything about yourself. And so when someone does, it's like, wait a second, they care about me, you know, in a certain way where you feel like you drop your guard, you feel like welcomed and special.
Right.
Special.
Right.
Special.
You know, when I was reading an article that I think it was on The Guardian, where you'd shared your story about the girl that brought you to the island and how, you know, she had made it very like, this is normal. And like, she didn't like really explain anything to you, and how he invited you to give him a massage. And she just was like, yeah, let's do it. And I know that in the article you shared that you obviously felt uncomfortable, but you went through with it because
Well, I was on the island.
you were on an island alone.
All
and
by myself. Yeah.
Yeah, like
and
what-
I remember this man had kind of groomed me for the last 2 hours.
Right,
was
like
that?
I
making
felt
you feel
comfortable.
safe,
Oh,
yeah.
it just was amazing.
So this was like
Asking
day one.
Yeah, it was. Oh, well, yeah. We went over to the island and we spent like the day there. And this was at dinner. So at dinner for 2 hours of hanging out, he focused his attention on me, asking me tons of questions about myself. And I have kind of an interesting past because my father is in the Air Force. So I grew up half my life in Europe. So, you know, I had lived in England. And at that moment, you know, a prince walks up. So it was like, whoa, you know, I have really important people on this island. And
This prince I think I was reading recently, it's finally like come to light. It's Prince Andrew, like that he has a deep, dark past of this, and it's finally being exposed. And I don't know if he's ever going to go to jail for it. Probably not. But
well, the girls don't want to speak out. The women now don't want to speak out about it.
Right.
Because you get shamed and, you know.
And we're
when you
probably
speak out-
scared, too.
And yeah, most people are scared. You don't want to go up against that type of power. But I mean, his power has been taken away because he's been shamed in many different ways since. So I started speaking out because I had a girlfriend after I came home from the island and stuff who was told by Jeffrey to go into a room with this said prince. So when I started speaking out in 2000, it was for her to say, wait a minute, I saw things, I know things, you know, so I was trying to like just speak out for her, not even knowing so much about, no, I didn't really want to talk about me.
You.
I wasn't ready yet. You know, so it came about because I saw him on the island when I was there in 2000. I saw another thing that happened with him. And so that's what I was speaking out about.
Not even your own stuff.
No,
you're
not
like
yet.
this is more important, not my own thing.
I
you
buried that,
yeah.
suppressed that. You know, it wasn't. And remember, I was also so brainwashed after that to think that this was a good person.
So even after that experience, you felt like you had a good time there, even though like you had an uncomfortable time.
I didn't have a good time.
Or maybe not a good time, but like there was something that brought you back enough there was a grooming had groomed enough for you to say.
Well, I'll explain what happened.
Okay.
Since you're asking.
Yeah.
So I was abused on that island that night with the girl in a kind of a threesome situation where it was just a massage. Come in, you know, Jeffrey's ready for his massage. We went and we did a massage. It was he did like massages. But that's how he kind of
Opened it up.
you know, lures you in it's just a massage. And then the massage can turn into assault. So that's what happened on the island. And then I went home disgusted and I hated this man. Right? So I didn't want anything to do with him. But like I said, in hindsight, I think from what I saw on the island, he and his women who worked, the secretaries, were constantly calling me every single week. Sometimes twice or 3 times a week. And it was almost like harassment because I kept saying, why are you calling me? I'm not going to go see that man. And then Jeffrey called me one day and he said, Lisa, I answered. And he said, Lisa, I remember what you told me on the island is that you wanted to be a Ford model. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm friends with Katie Ford. And I'm like, Katie Ford, like she was the owner of Ford Model Agency at that time, Ford Models. And so I'm just like, yeah. And he's like, well, I know her. And I think that she would like you. And I want you to go meet with her. And so that was it for me. That was it. Because that was my big goal and dream.
And he
Because
made it happen for you.
Oh, yeah. I started modeling at 15 and 16. I'd already been working at a high level and worked all around Europe and South Africa and went to Greece. You know, I was working at a very good level, but that was the agency, the dream agency in 2000 that I wanted to be with. And on the island, he asked me, he said, what was your big goal? And I said, well, I want to be a Ford model. I want to be an actress. I want to do all these things, but I want to be a Ford model. And I don't know if he mentioned he knew Katie Ford back then, but when he called me up on the phone 4 months later, that was just it for me. And that's kind of how it happens, the grooming process. They do something big for you. Or if you want to be a singer, it's like, I know so-and-so, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of it for me. And after that, I just went and I met with Katie Ford. And from there, signed up with the agency. And I was with the Ford Modeling Agency for over 10 years after that.
And after that, what was your relationship with him after that? How was that? How did he make... I'm just wondering, because I think the abusers, they use and they yield their power in so many different ways. Some people will be like, remember that thing I did for you? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or they just keep giving you things to keep you coming in.
Right. Well, we have to differentiate between these types of master manipulators and abusers and the ones that just want to be, who go up to girls and like, I can help you with your singing career, your podcasting, and do all this stuff. And they have really, they don't have any way they're really going to do it. Or even they may know people in the business, but they just really want one thing from you, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many of those types of men. Let's just say they're men, because most are men, you know, in Hollywood and in the music business and arts and entertainment. So there are men like that. Then you have these men who are really good at grooming you and making you trust them and making it seem like they have ulterior motives, right? That are just more salacious and more devious and dark. Jeffrey is in that category, right? So whatever he was doing with me was to probably keep me quiet, because, you know, a few years later, things came out about him and he wanted to make sure that I wasn't talking. So it was to keep what I had seen quiet. And it works, because when they are a person who's actually doing things for you. So he did something for me that was huge. That was huge. Right. That was life-changing for me. Right. At that time of my life. And so now all of a sudden, Jeffrey's a good guy in my... in my mind, switched. Wow, it switched. You want to know why? Because when I went to meet with Katie Ford, she said, I love Jeffrey. After that, he would invite you to charity events, big charity events and things. And after that, it was like, everyone loved him. Everyone talked highly about him. He was a genius. And you have to remember that who we know of Jeffrey Epstein today was not who we knew of him 20 years ago. Right. He was a powerful person, but he wasn't a playboy. He never gave you drugs and alcohol. He wasn't a P. Diddy. Right? He never gave you drugs and alcohol. He wasn't doing all these things where people are like, oh, don't go at P. Diddy party. Right. You know, we all knew what, Sean Combs was doing back then. But with Jeffrey, it was more like on this higher level of powerful person, so it was just very different. And I'm a kid. Like,
I mean, most of all, like, I think people forget, like, in your early 20s, even you don't know shit, and you think you know shit. And so all you know of the world is like, this person did something like huge for me. It's life-changing. And so there's an admiration and a love that, like, and a respect that you can never, like, there's nobody else who could probably have done that for you. And so you're just leveraging that energy and thinking like you're in debt to this person. And I think, like, even now when you hear, like, the trolls on the internet and shit like that, like, the shame that people cast on victims is so crazy to me, because a lot of times it's like, you don't even have to be a kid to be manipulated by men. You don't even have to be, like I said, like, society grooms women this way. We super, like, sweep under the carpet, like, the manipulation of men and, like, how deep grooming can go into grown women, like, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can think, you can feel empowered, you can feel, like, powerful, and still get got, because you're like, oh shit, like, they just conned me real quick.
Right.
And, you know, charm and personality and giving people the benefit of the doubt, because women have literally been trained to be quiet and to be, you know, palatable and to be like, oh, like be nice and sweet, because if you're rowdy, then no one's going to like you. If you make a big noise, no one's going to like you. So we're constantly questioning ourselves like, damn, was he being weird? That was kind of weird. That massage was weird. But then he did this.
Yeah.
So then you're constantly going back and forth. Like, I think we are bred in society that literally has planted seeds of us forgetting our intuition,
Yes.
moving away from our bodies, moving away from the natural indicators that something is
that
going off
instinct.
and something is wrong. And so we're constantly trying to be liked and loved by people around us and not make a lot of noise and not like make a lot of trouble. And so things happen to us. Grooming happens to us easier. And like even in school, like be quiet, raise your hand. Like there's all these like minor things that train us to shut the fuck up, essentially, and to go against our own bodies. And then shit like this happens, and then people are like, "Oh, why the fuck did you do that?" Well,
Yeah.
bitch, because I live it here.
Right.
Because I'm a woman.
That's what like, a lot of people will say to you. Like, why did you fall for it? Why didn't you get out? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But that's the thing. Like, even just like the power dynamic in school, the teacher, you know, high school and college, the teacher and student, they're holding something over you, and you find there's so much abuse. Actually, with women, with boys too, in school have been coming out lately too, because you know you have that power and you can get whatever like flirtatious thing that you want from the student.
And I guess there is a level of like programming that even women are given to leverage our sexual
Yeah, that's true, too.
our sexual power, that it means something, that we then have some type of power over these older men, when in fact they know what the fuck they're doing, and you feel like, oh, I'm liked, I'm mature,
I'm in control.
He's choosing me. Oh, this person of stature likes me. Then this, and like even with the school dynamics, like I think as adults we underestimate the power dynamic, because you think that you're in your power, you feel empowered, but then when some shit happens and you look back, you're like, oh, what the fuck just happened? It can be that quick.
Yeah.
And like
you're not even aware of it until probably months or years later. Yeah.
I mean, I think too, in the industry that you're in, which is modeling, you're revered for your beauty, you're revered for your body, you're yielding all of these physical qualities to book the job, to get them to buy the product, like all these things. And so then when you're 20 years old, 21 years old, I was like, you're still figuring out, even though you've I guess mastered in some capacity how to yield your sexuality, I guess, in a physical form. Mentally, there's still this little girl inside that still doesn't even know who she is sexually, who probably doesn't even know her body, who doesn't have the stamina, the confidence to say no in those type of situations where there's like a power dynamic. And also there's also where we leave our bodies too, like in situations we're like, okay, well, it's just that one time, it's fine. And like we were having this conversation off camera where like you start to think, well, I've had sex with people for less. So it's fine. I've had that one night stand and I woke up and I was like, what the fuck did I do? And so at least I'm going to get something from this. And then you're like not realizing how much harm you're actually doing to yourself, because it was actually easier to get nothing.
And it's funny you say that, because a lot of abusers will say that. You know, you'll just go with a guy your age, and he'll just use you, abuse you. So why can't you be with me when I'm actually doing something for you? You're actually going to get something out of it.
Right.
and then you're like, well, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I have slept with so and so from fucking the 9th grade, and he's stupid. You know, like there's a level, like you said, like of like, oh, he chose me, and that means I have something special, and like I'm special because I'm with. Even in movies, like if you look at even like media, like older rich men are depicted as something like
To be
like a
desired.
prize.
Yeah, to be desired.
When did this abuse stop?
It went on for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay. And what was it? Was it you that were just like finally stopped, like you're like, enough is enough. I'm not going to like.
Well, I feel like I could never get away. You know, I just always felt like this person, like, how am I supposed to just stop going to see him? Because I was also getting something out of it in a way that he was like a mentor to me. And he was also this genius. So when I would go visit him, I always felt like, wow, I always want to pick his brain. I want to learn more. You know, when he would tell me little secrets, I felt like I was like in with him. Or invite myself and friends to like dinner parties or like charity events or Broadway shows. And it was always a group of people. And I felt like I was part of it all. You know, it wasn't until it was like, okay, you're ready for your massage. And it's like how do I get out of here? You know?
Then you feel like indebted in
yes,
ways.
exactly.
Well, we got the tickets, we went to the dinner, and now I'm
Yes.
like, fuck, okay, I knew this was coming, and now I kind of have to do it.
Well, that's how it is with all abuse. Because there's always a good and bad in because if it was all bad, you would never go back.
Right.
Right? But it's the good. They're always, even an abusive relationship is always the good husband for a while, 50% of the time, maybe even up to 70% of the time, and then he beats you. Right? So it's like always this cognitive dissonance that you have in your mind. I've had that for years in other relationships too, where it's this good, this constant good that they feed you, but then it's abuse.
Well, because they know how to like get you really, really, really high and make you feel really, really good, and then they snatch it from you, and then you're always trying to scramble back to this person that you once knew and this time, and you're like, wait, well, where's that person? And it's almost like you're in competition with yourself, because you're like, if I could have got this version of him this time, then eventually this version is going to come back out, and then you're constantly like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and you're constantly going out and everyone's saying what an amazing person he is. Everybody back then said that he was the most amazing person. I used to say it. Right? So.
And then, like, on top of him, you're in an industry where you're constantly fighting for your life in general. Like, I can only imagine, like, photographers and just, like, the constant, like, interference and boundary crossing that you're already dealing with on top of this assault and this, like, you know.
So you're thinking it's normal.
So you're just like, it's like, I feel it everywhere, you know.
In older men and younger women, you see a lot, like, at parties and things like that still.
What, like, now that you've stepped away and you're out of that part of your life, when you're looking back on that in those times, like, do you see, like, the ways in which this assault was, like, affecting you in different ways, like the way you showed up? I don't know if, like, you fell into any
sure.
habits or anything for coping. What were those ways?
To suppress the memories, I would go out, like, I was like a socialite, a big socialite back then. I would go to all the parties and the events and, you know, drink alcohol and abuse drugs, you know, and things like that, just to kind of suppress the memories, because it absolutely does work. I don't advise you to do it that way, but it works in a way of just like, oh, I've forgotten about it
For so long.
Oh yeah, you have a bad episode, you know what I mean, and then you know, something horrible happens, and then you want to just go out drinking and partying that night. Because also on the flip side of that, you feel worthless, right? And there's a lot of shame that comes with it. And in your mind, like, what am I doing? How do I get out of this? And then you can't talk to people. You can't say, hey, you know, the crazy thing about that is in the 3.5 years that I knew him, it wasn't until my girlfriend came to me crying that said to me, you don't know who Jeffrey is. Like, you don't know who this man is. Like, what do you mean? Because she has some different experiences. And she's just like, you know, he made me do something that was really awful. You know, he made her go into a room in his house and have sex with someone. And he made her do it. And after that, she was like, who are you? Like, why would you make me do that? And remember, you got to remember, he's recording everything.
Like filming?
You know? Yeah, filming, as cameras everywhere. In a room in his house, in his Upper East Side, biggest mansion or townhouse in Manhattan. And he's filming everything, every room, everything that goes on. So
did people know that they were being filmed?
I mean, we knew there were cameras in there. But probably not the men that are going in there probably didn't know. Because, I mean, the girls are young girls. And if they're not underage, a younger girl, let's say 24 and under, I would say that's about the age range. You know, are not doing it for fun. They're not doing it because they want to go sleep with a prince or go sleep with this guy or this fat lawyer or this, like, you know, whatever it is. They're disgusting, some of these men. But he's making them do this as the women that have come out and spoken out about it. And it's awful because he's using you, right? He's making you feel like I'm doing all these things for you, but he's using you. So that didn't happen to me. That happened to my best friend at the time. And after she told me that, I was like, what do you mean he made you go into a room and have sex with this guy? You know, I didn't understand it because that was getting so much darker than what I thought it was.
Like, I thought it was just light.
Well, you know, you think it's light because you see these things happen at parties, and you know lots of people who maybe flirt with somebody or maybe even have sex with them to, you know, get a movie role or get this or get that. So that, you know, that kind of stuff happens. But when it's on a darker level where he's taking these women and introducing you to these older, powerful men who still the list has not come out about, right?
Do you think that list will ever come out?
Well, all they did was release a list of who showed up at his parties and on his
that can-
island. Who cares if Oprah or whoever showed up? That doesn't mean they know anything that's going on.
Right.
So the list, no. The powerful men, the ones that I know and the ones that my friends know about have never come out.
Because they're paying big bucks to make sure that shit never comes out.
Because
the video, someone has these videos.
Of course.
It'll never come
People
out.
are getting paid off majorly not to release that shit.
Well, they're the most powerful and wealthiest people in America. So it's never going to come out.
So when that happened, that was when your friend shared this with you. What did that do? What did that do to you?
Well, it just was like, wait a second. Well, first I was just like scared to death. But I went to go see Jeffrey after that and kind of confronted him because I wanted to get out of like this whole web I was in with him. And after that, I mean, she told me I would think March or April, and I had left New York by May and moved to Los Angeles. It was 2004.
And that was the biggest reason why.
Yeah, I left because of him.
What
I
was
left.
that conversation like when you brought that to him?
Well, the one thing I've always remembered, he said, I like to have things on people.
I like to have things on people.
So it was just getting so dark. And
he meant that to you as well. Like he was threatening you.
yeah,
In some
there's something that happened that day that I've never really talked about that went pretty dark. And after that, I knew what kind of person he was. But years up until then, I was always saying, Jeffrey's amazing. He's great. You know, my parents' house was not that far from his home that he owned in New Mexico. My parents lived in New Mexico at the time. And so, you know, I would go to his house and like ride horses. He wasn't there. You know, he was like part of like, he would send gifts to my parents' house. In the little black book that came out, my parents' number was in it, you know? So like I knew him and I always thought like, okay, I have things that I don't want to talk about, but he was also part of my life and a mentor and a really good mentor of, you know, things that he really taught me about life and business. And he started the businesses of many of my friends. He put them through college. He bought computers. He introduced a lot of friends to their husbands. Like this is a man who did major things for young women. So a lot of people loved and adored him during that time, and he was part of things. So when it came out in 2006 that he and Ghislaine Maxwell were actually abusing underage girls, that's when everybody flipped the script on Jeffrey Epstein. It was after we found out about underage, because the overage, 18 to 25, I mean,
Everybody's like, that's fine.
And we're doing that.
Right,
you know?
right.
Those kinds of things. So it wasn't unheard of. So what really hurt Jeffrey was finding out about these underage girls. And these girls were not like the 18 to 25 in New York City that were ambitious and beautiful actresses and models. And, you know, he helped a lot of these women. He was hurting. I mean, he hurt the other women too, but he was hurting the underage.
These children.
These children were from like rough parts of town. They were already addicted to drugs or came from abusive families. And Ghislaine, and she's in prison now. You know, I went to her trial.
That was what his lover, right? Wasn't, or supposedly?
I guess back in the day. And then she was in his circle of powerful people and helping to find, I mean, literally going to look for these underage, mostly blonde or, you know, white females. Right?
She's in jail forever, I'm hoping? Or what's,
Probably not
did she get
forever.
sentenced?
Yeah, she got sentenced, but probably not forever.
Wow. To be and also to
The
be,
only person that's gone to jail for everything that Jeffrey Epstein has done is a woman.
Interesting.
that's crazy.
It's interesting that she even, like, as a woman, like, a lot of times these abusers have women to help.
Oh, yeah.
That's like,
Always.
It makes it feel comfortable, safer.
Yeah.
But that's always, like, astonishing to me, because what the fuck? Like, that a woman would do that to another woman. But, I mean, probably.
She didn't care about these young girls.
And
She's from a royal family, or not a royal family, but a wealthy family in England. Was friends with Prince Andrew and all those people and stuff. So I think she just looked down on these young girls like they were nothing. I mean, I've heard that she said that about them. So it's this whole level of evil.
How do you feel like, you know, reflecting back on the situation and then like thinking about just your childhood, was there anything that like is correlated in like any sort of experiences or
the
lack
childhood
of
stuff.
that could have contributed to you feeling powerless?
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that, but the childhood, I think the first 7 years defines all of us. for the rest of our lives. Right? So the childhood is a funny thing because I would have never have said, I always said I had a great childhood. Traveled all around the world, and went to great schools and had supportive parents that, were always there for me. My mom stayed at home. My dad worked. I had everything I wanted. Popular, lots of friends. I always said I had a great childhood. But to answer your question, I never had like a relationship with my parents that I felt loved and adored and cared for. And I never felt like they were proud of me. I always had a little bit of shame maybe about my childhood, and that had to do with my parents. My dad never really called me and checked on me. How are you doing? And telling me, oh, I saw you on TV or I did this, because I was very successful in my 20s. I was always on TV, maybe 5-10 commercials that were popular commercials. And, in magazines and things like that. I never felt like nobody gave a shit about me, to be honest. So I think when Jeffrey gave me that attention that a father figure would give you, not a playboy, it was a father figure, mentor, I was just desperate for it.
Yeah.
I was desperate for it. So I liked that attention from a man. I did. And I liked learning from him. And I felt like someone cared about me.
Right. We're here giving you guidance, giving you support.
I did. And that's why also when he died, I still get emotional. When he died, when I saw him, the news that he died, I felt like a part of me had died. So sick to say that because of who he is. But he was a part of my life for a few years that I looked up to, and he was a mentor to me. So it was confusing.
Very.
Right?
Very
so
confusing.
You feel kind of like a family member died. I feel differently now because I've been on this journey and I've met with survivors, and I know now what I was going through and what I went through, and I'm very much aware of the abuse that I went through, where a few years ago I didn't even think about it. It almost like it didn't even happen. And I've had to go through many years of therapy to actually talk about it. And it took me 3 or 4 months to even start talking about the abuse that happened to me at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein.
I think people underestimate the fact that, like, a lot of times your abuser is someone that you admire and love, and that it's usually generally very confusing. It doesn't matter, like, if something happens to you very young, or like it's a lot of times, in order to be groomed, you have to grow an affinity for that person in order for you to be vulnerable enough to let it happen. And I think people, like, particularly men or people who are looking from the outside in, like, are not recognizing how deeply intricate those relationships actually are. Even to, like, childhood shit, when, like, kids are molested, it's like you're also being aroused. Yeah, so your body is responding in a way that it feels good, because this is what your body does.
Right.
And then that feels very confusing. I think even for me, I was molested for a long time growing up. And it took me a long time to even consider it that, because it was from someone who was close to me. It's a female. She's a little bit older than me. Like, I thought, like, this is what kids do. Very normal. I thought this was normalcy. And as I started to get older and talk to other people and, like, just educate myself more, and just these conversations become more, like, on the forefront, I recognized that, like, in my adulthood, when I would be in situations with boys that I did like, but I didn't want to keep going, I would just freeze and shut up.
Same.
I would freeze. And there was a specific moment where I remember, like, saying no, and then I just literally checked out. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Even in my own head, like, that's weird that I could just check out. But recognizing, like, as a kid, I did that. And so how our bodies deal with trauma in childhood, it's like, if you cannot handle the big emotion, if you cannot process it, that's how your body protects you. Your body, your psyche is protecting you, so you do forget. You do freeze. You do literally tether from your body, because you can't handle what's going on. And so if that is something that has happened to you in childhood, or, early developmental ages, as you're getting older, that is something that your body will automatically do to protect itself. And so you just think you're protecting yourself. And same, like, even as an adult, like, in my 30s, I was raped, and I would never even say that word until I had a client. I was doing her lashes, and she was raped by someone she was having sex with on a regular basis. But this one particular time, he would not stop, and she was telling me about it. And the client was a little bit kooky, a little bit crazy, and I was like, she's crazy a little bit. And I was like, and she came back 3 weeks later to get her lashes refilled, and she was like, I told my friends that story, and none of them said I'm sorry. None of them. They were all like judging me. And in that moment, I realized, fuck, I judged her. And then in that moment again, as I'm keep going, I'm like, bitch, you were raped. It took all of those steps to acknowledge that I was not having any empathy for this woman because it was someone that she had, voluntary sex with before, and she's an adult. And then it took a step further for her to be like, my friends didn't even like show up in a caring way. And I was like, damn, I didn't really feel. And then that moment I was like, bitch, this happened to you very recently by someone that you love and that you had sex with voluntarily. So I didn't even think to consider this thing rape. And it took a lot even for me to say the word rape because it's such a heavy word that women are mostly told not to say.
Right.
And also, so like putting that word on your abuser feels like
heavy,
too heavy because that you can't take it back.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
That like it's a weird thing for women. It's a weird thing in general because if I then call you a rapist, then that's what you are, and then I'm in it. Then I have to,
and then I'm a victim.
And then I'm a victim, and then I haven't done anything. And there's all these layers to abuse and how it starts and how it and how it continues,
right.
And how it plants its seeds in your life as an adult. And even now in this very moment, like I've had shit happen to me, like. Even in this process of like Good Moms talking every week for fucking 7 years, I feel very empowered. I feel very confident. So I think, and so I have been put in situations as an adult. Like I never even said anything about this on the podcast, but when I went to school for Tantra, a school that is supposed to be trauma informed, where we learned about sexual assault specifically and trauma. The night of my graduation, a teacher who had comforted me and supported me through like a release that had to do with sexual assault, then groped me and said something like rubbed his fucking bare body on the back of me and said like basically he wanted to have sex with me. And I fucking froze. And I just didn't know what, I literally didn't do anything. And I didn't know what else to do. And I didn't even like, the next day I was so... Like other people saw it, other students, everyone noticed what was happening except the people who were supposed to notice what was happening. But
I did that in front of everyone?
Yeah. Wow. And he did. His wife was there.
What?
At one point, the owner of the school was there. Apparently, nobody noticed any of this behavior.
Wow.
The next day, I called Orlando and I was like, yo, this shit so-and-so happened. And I was like, I don't want to tell on him. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, I don't want him to get in trouble. I even said to one of the other students, she was like, let's go back there and tell the other teacher. I was like, I don't want to tell the white man. I don't want to tell the white man on the black man. And she was like, that's the only other man that there is.
Right.
And I was like, who the fuck is this guy that I'm protecting?
Protecting this black man for what?
For what?
Why? Yeah.
And I just recognized, like, in that moment, like, I started to unravel, and I was just like, I literally, even when I called the founder of the school, I was shaking. And I had two students around me, like, I'll support you while you do this call. And I'm like, still not really processing, why am I shaking?
We were triggered from something that's deeper.
Something so much deeper. And even when I called her, I said, please don't say anything. I don't want him to get in trouble.
You're protecting him.
I literally reverted back into childhood. I was like 5 years old and I couldn't even understand it. Like someone who feels confident, someone who feels empowered, someone who I feel like I use my voice often in this moment, like all that shit went out the window. I had just finished a 2-year course about fucking trauma and sexual shit, and I could not even understand why I was reacting this way. Right. I didn't even realize it was just something that immediately made me just say, I don't want to do it. And it took like a lot to kind of start peeling back the layers of why I reacted this way, why I allowed it to happen, why I didn't just say like, yo, what are you doing? Like, I didn't say any of these things. And in fact, nobody did. Even the wife who was over in the corner peeping shit because she also froze. Because this was a bad situation. And even I didn't even think that in that situation, because I'm a grown-ass adult, like I'm not in high school, I'm not in college. This is like a post, like a adult college, essentially. I still felt so deeply about this power dynamic that this was my teacher. And this administrator, this administration, I didn't want to disappoint anyone. But it took me that happened almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and it still weighs on me because I wanted it to just go away. I wanted to just be done with school, graduate, be happy, go into this practice that I spent all this money in. But it has lingered and lingered and lingered and lingered because I didn't say anything. I had someone recently tell me, like, I'm going to that school. And I was like, okay. You know, like, should I say something? Is this going to discredit, like, all the education that I got? Is this going to, like, you know, why didn't I do anything? But I'm like, this is how deeply rooted this shit is. Because it isn't, like, you can be confident, you can be empowered, you can have kids. All these things can happen. And you can still become a victim because in the moment, you a lot of times revert. And women are not trained in this. We're just now getting to a place where we can have these conversations and be like, this happened to me. And not feel like discarded, not feel worthless because of it, and also know, like, this shit had nothing to do with me. Like, and it's scary. That shit scared me. And there's been times in my adulthood, like I said, these separate, you know, incidents where I'm like, what the fuck? Who am I? And it makes me realize there's something so much deeper, like, that's implanted in me, like, that this is how I react, that I literally check out of my body. And it happens, like, in certain situations, you'll notice, like, if you just don't have any feeling at all, you go numb, it's because you're checking out of your fucking body. Because that's what's safe for you and that's what's protected you. And, like, it takes a lot of time to recognize, to say, like, you're safe and you don't have to check out. You can stay here and deal with these feelings. They're not too big. But I just, like, even in having the reluctancy to even say it here.
Right.
The reluctancy to say it to my man. The reluctancy to, like, when he got hype, I was like, yo, calm down.
Is this the first time you've talked about it?
Yeah.
On air?
Yeah. This is the first time I ever talked about it on air. And because I don't feel like I don't feel like they did enough. I feel like after I had conversations with the woman who owned the school and I was like, this has caused a lot of issues. And her response was, this is good. It was time to, you know, look at these things. Everyone should go to therapy.
Oh, gosh.
And that's crazy. You know what I mean? And it made me realize, like, this person who I was, like, looking at as, like, this amazing person with all this information, which the information is great. What I got from it was great. How the situation was dealt with was not great. Like, whatever training that you go into, like, when you're dealing with women in sex specifically, there's a lot of vulnerabilities there. And the people who are in that space need to be trained times 10. And I don't think that was what happened there. And it let me leave with a lot of shame. I felt shame that I didn't say anything, that I didn't make a bigger deal about it, that I, you know, until this day, like, I don't feel good about it. And it just brought up a lot of things that I didn't recognize were unresolved and that I hadn't worked through. And, like, even right now, Erica and I are in a queen healing program with Goddess Jessie at the Sweet Love Sanctuary. And, you know, we're going through, like, a 12-week process of different things.
Are you working on this?
I mean, it's come up. And, you know, recently in week 6, we were talking about our just, like, our relationships with our pussies, experiences that we've had, using our pussies for bad, selling it for less than it's worth energetically and like, just actually tangible money, and just, like, have you ever been in a situation, like, just posing questions that I think in adulthood as women and just as people who have experienced sexual assault, you can just live your life and move forward without ever having to think about these things again. But when they're questions are posed to you, like, have you ever been in a situation where you did something sexual you didn't want to do? Hell yeah. For years and years and years. And even in my college years, getting so drunk, getting blacked out drunk because I'm suppressing something, not because I'm partying and it's fun, because, bitch, you're hurt.
Right.
And not even connecting those two things. Even to the point, like, recently, I was, like, with my man, and he choked me, and, like, being, like, on some kinky, like, we're being intimate, and I passed out a little bit, and when I woke up, it probably was like 8 seconds, but I had a moment where I was like, where am I? And immediately I felt shame. Immediately I felt guilt. I felt scared, and it made me feel like I was in my 20s, blacked out somewhere with somebody I didn't know or recognize, and I immediately started crying. And he's like, whoa, are you okay? I was like, no. And I couldn't even say what was bothering me. I couldn't even put into words, like, that this felt eerily familiar. And just recognizing that, like, by suppressing these feelings, by not like even in girlfriend situations, like has there been a time where someone's done something to you that you haven't acknowledged it? This is where the healing happens. If we can't have the conversations, we will never address the thing. And the thing about Tantra is what I did learn is like that shit doesn't go anywhere. It lives in your body. The body keeps the score.
Yes.
So even if you think you've forgotten, if you keep sweeping shit under the carpet, bitch, it's going to come up. And you know, obviously in this chapter of my life, I've done a lot of work and I'm in a really safe relationship and I can have these conversations. And even then I recognize when I have memories come up and I'm not ready to talk about them. And I leave them there until I'm ready to revisit them.
And that's okay.
And like it's a process. And I know that there are so many women who have experienced shit like this, and you're listening and you're like, damn, I wanted to leave that there. And I'm encouraging you to like look at it, you know, like go on your body and find where that memory lives and kind of trace that thread, because I think a lot of us think that we can cut it and you can't. It lives. Like those things live. And when you give birth, you know, like epigenetics, and I'm thinking of us all as Black women,
Right.
you know, I was just looking at something today about the vessel and how, you know, just like historically, when you have all your value and like historically our vessel, there's so much has been put on the vessel, how we start to move in that way. And for a long time, I was like, I'm powerful. I can fuck whoever I want. I don't give a fuck. Because I don't care. Because it was me trying to say that, like, even if someone has done something to me,
You're
now
in control.
I'm in control now.
Right.
When I haven't been.
Yeah.
I've just fucking suppressed and wilding the fuck out. And thinking that, like, just, you know, burying it more and more and more and doing more is just going to make it go away. When in fact, I'm just fucking burying myself deeper in the shit. But
Do you
I'm
think
just,
that makes you feel powerful still?
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm like I'm a kept woman. Like I'm not like, of course I have hoe tendencies. I'm a very sexual person. Like I like my sexual part. And I think that's another thing for women too, is like, we are innately sexual. We give birth, we create, but it's been so demonized. So there's like this weird, we're not in connection with it, but we're being used for it. And so it's like a oppressive energy inside of us. It's like, I want to be sexual and I feel connected to my sensuality, but also I hate it. There's so many women who like completely suppress that part of them, because it's like, if I don't give attention to anyone, if I cover up, then maybe no one's going to see me. Maybe I won't be heard again. But we all know that doesn't make a difference.
I mean, it goes both ways. There's that woman, and then there's the woman who's using her sexual prowess for protection. For protection, to forget, to feel powerful because she doesn't feel in control, but she feels like, oh, I can control these niggas right here, and I don't give a fuck about them, so I'm somehow in control, when really you're not. And I think it's just a cycle that will continue and continue. Like you said, like your body keeps the score. It doesn't just leave, it stays. And I think too, as women, we often downplay the trauma too, because it's like, oh, when like I hear your story or I hear her story, and I'm like, well, mine isn't that bad. So
I didn't get raped.
I didn't get raped, so maybe it's like, you know,
I shouldn't take away the attention from something that's actually a really bad abuse.
Yeah, and
Well,
like
it's all abuse.
It's all abuse.
yeah, and women historically, we've done that. I've done that a lot in my life, not just even just like sexual assault, but just in life in general, downplaying the things that have deeply affected me because it didn't feel substantial enough to the next person's story. And so I think it's so important for us to have these type of conversations so that we understand that, okay, yes, there is a spectrum, but at the end of the day, it's one thing. You know, like it's one thing, and it's trauma and it's hurt and it's pain. And the beauty of all of it is that you can heal from it. You can access it. You have the power to access it, but you have to face it. You have to sit with it. You have to say, oh my God, yeah, these are big things, big feelings, and I'm ready to now conquer it. One thing at a time though, because it can feel totally overwhelming. We're like, where the fuck do I even start? You know? And so I guess my question for you is like, where did you start? Where did you start in the healing?
On the healing journey? Let's see here. For me, first acknowledging what happened. You know, the acknowledgement of what happened, and finding people that I could speak to, that I trusted, where it felt like a safe place for me. So when I started speaking out, I mean, I had best friends, boyfriend didn't listen to me, family members that didn't want to support. And so I had to go and look where I went was to other survivors, usually of the same abuser or just anyone who's survivors, which is why the podcast came about. But I wanted to just speak to women who understood what I had gone through, that weren't going to judge. Because I found as I was speaking out, just everyone just judges you so much. Like you're the bad person, or you stayed in an abusive relationship, or why did you do that? And just everything that just makes you just want to clam up and not talk about it, your abuse. So, but I was ready to, because I'm just like, because, it was in the news and everything, and the survivors were speaking out, and I knew that I had a very similar story. So I connected with other survivors. Many of them started a group chat. We started speaking on the phone for hours, and I lost a lot of some of my family and some friends, through this journey.
Really?
And to me, that was the hardest part of just not having your closest family and friends really support you. That was hard for me. But as you do a podcast, you meet so many wonderful people and you build all these new friendships.
Right.
So that's been really helpful for me,
Yeah.
the healing journey. That, and also EMDR therapy. I was telling you before, EMDR therapy is changed my life. So it's a type of therapy. It's not just talking. You use rapid eye movement. So there's flashlights where your eyes are moving back and forth like this, back and forth. And it's going into certain parts of your memory. And you have pulsators in your hand going back and forth. And you have the music going back and forth. There's all these different things. And it really makes you go back into suppressed thoughts and memories that you kind of don't want to talk about or think about, or that you just literally suppressing it means that you don't want anything to do with it anymore. But as you both were saying, when you go through this whole healing journey, it's like you have to really own it. The good, bad, the ugly, you really have to own what you went through and talk about it. And then you can finally move into healing from it.
Right.
But I mean, for so many years, I just suppressed it and didn't think about it.
When those feelings come up, I'm thinking, because for me, my memory is something that I'm always really insecure about. Like I feel so worried about when I'm getting old, and I'm like, am I going to remember my life? I have a really hard time remembering things. And as I've been in this work with Goddess Jessie and the Queen Healing Circle, I've just realized that I think so much of my suppression is because as a child, I was going through different traumatic events and I didn't know where to put them. And so I put everything in one box. And so now I put everything in one box. Even the good shit is in one box. Like I can't even remember good memories. They're all in one box. And they're just kind of like, it's like this foggy glass where it's like, I can see it, but I can't really like see the detail. And so through meditation, through a lot of generational healing, ancestral healing, there's little things that are starting. Even me interviewing my family this week is part of my process of like trying to like access things and remember things. But EMD, you said what's called EMDR? I was like, that sounds really interesting. And I'm wondering like,
That would work for you.
like where the fuck are these memories?
No, that would work for you because for me, I didn't have those memories either.
You didn't?
No. When you suppress them, you
they
get rid of
literally
them.
came from that. Interesting.
I have a question about EDMR. I know it's like it has like a lot of relation to like hypno, but I'm always confused about like, are they like the therapist is like telling you to bring up the stories and repeat them back and like kind of go there so you can tell them in deep detail, and then is there a part where are you retelling this, like after you say it a lot of times, are you then retelling the story in a way that is something you can sit with?
Well, he doesn't ask me any questions.
Okay.
So I just come in every week. Because of the podcast, I do it twice a week to deal with the trauma that brings up from my guests. But for me, I just talk about my day, what's been going on or what's happened that week. And then from that, trauma from the past is going to show up daily or weekly or monthly. So as you're talking about things, then he'll say, okay, tell me more about that. You'll just talk a little bit more. But why did you do that if you're dating or something with your husband or whatever? And he just dives into that a little bit deeper with you. And then, you can start the music, start the pulse, and then you doing the rapid eye movement, and then you go deeper into some of those memories. So it's just bringing stuff up as you bring it up.
It's like it kind of creates the thread to kind of root back to where it's rooted to.
Yeah, it's not the normal therapy where they're asking you questions or whatever. It's like they wait until you're talking. And he'll sit there. Minutes will go by until you start talking. because it's all about you. And so, so I would just, so many things. I mean, I've been doing it for a year now, and it's incredible because not only as you go through this healing process, I used to be like against therapy. Like, I don't need that because I used to do talk therapy for years. It did nothing for me. Like, I almost would not want to go.
Alternative therapy is like a lot of times you need something more than just talking, because
I needed it. I needed something deeper
because we're trained to just talk in a way that suppresses what we.
protective.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
And it's like you don't tell the
self-protecting.
truth.
Yeah,
You're like,
or you just dance around the thing because I don't want to talk about that shit.
Exactly, you dance around it. And plus, I don't even remember what happened about certain situations, right? But this kind of memory, it's like he waits until you talk about it, then it's like he knows exactly what
to dig into.
Oh yeah, dig into a little bit more. A lot of times I'll be in there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and come out and for days be so angry because I brought up things that I didn't want to think about. That really and also a lot of times you don't want to have memories about certain people in your life that you think are good in your life.
But you've
probably were not good.
You've made a story about them so they can
story.
exist there. And so it's like if I don't want to interrupt the story I've been telling myself,
exactly.
then I just don't.
Because we're all telling the same story all the time. It's not always true.
Right.
We're telling. So it goes into those memories over and over and over again until I can finally start healing them, owning it, and then putting that in a safe place.
So bringing up just weekly, daily things, and then how do they relate to these deep suppressed memories?
Yeah, because it could just be something you're talking about with your daughter. Some advice you gave her. Like, where did that come from? Let's talk more about that.
That's so interesting. Because even yesterday when I was sharing with you what she told me about the girl at school liking girls, I took, at first I was like, it's not a big deal. I was like, except if someone tries to make you do something you don't want to do. And in that moment, it made me think about shit I did that I didn't want to do as a kid, being around her age. And I'm like for a brief moment that went there, but then I just I don't want to make it too heavy and just always do what you want to do. But there's
and that's important to say. Yeah.
We forget that on a regular, daily, weekly basis, there are probably things that come up that will trigger those memories briefly. But if you are so busy suppressing them and covering them, you're gonna breeze right past them.
Oh yeah,
hit the left
everything.
instead of the right. Yeah. And the thing about suppression, about what you were saying, and I've said this before, and I truly believe this because I feel like me and Erica have both experienced this in this peak of good moms, experiencing all these new things together and accomplishing all these amazing things together. I feel like when you have things that happen to you that are really bad that you don't go into, when things that happen to you that are really good, your body loses the ability to react in any way that's too high, too sad, too traumatic, or too happy. So you're kind of always at this middle neutral
keel.
Because you've trained yourself to suppress big emotions. And so what happens is you're like, I'm so happy. And then you're like, but I don't know why I can't really feel. It's because when things that happen that are traumatic, you don't feel. Things that will happen that are really good, you also won't feel. And so there's and you have to give yourself permission to constantly feel.
So you can feel life.
Well, yeah, and crying is so important. Actually getting those tears out is when you kind of release is super important. You ever talk to people who are like, I've never cried? Well, that was me. I hadn't cried for 20 years.
Wow.
I hadn't thought of those kinds of things that would make me cry. And then after going through EMDR, I cry all the time now.
Because you guys
I'm always
backed up.
Yeah, and I'm always on this sensitive thing. I can feel when I'm getting sensitive.
Because you're in touch with your
I'm
body again.
Super in touch now. And then when you're super in touch with your body, then you can have those boundaries.
Right.
When you're,
Right. Because you actually know what your body doesn't want and what it actually does want. I know you're a mother of 3 boys. How has this, I guess, honesty, this unearthing, have you discussed it with them? I mean, I'm assuming you have because they're a little bit older.
Yeah.
What was that conversation like?
From the start, I always told them when I went to speak or was interviewed for a documentary, I would tell them what it was for. Well, like you said, they're older, so I have teenagers now.
But
if they were under 8 or something, I probably wouldn't have said something like that. But as they were getting older, I've always been that type of mom where I just want them to know I don't like to sugarcoat anything. And I don't do the birds and the bees. If you ask me about sex, I'm telling you exactly what it is. Right? And I just want to be super honest about things because that's the way the world is. You don't want to sugarcoat things too much for kids because it's a harsh world and not everybody's good out there. So you need to let them know from when they're little, little by little, but what to really expect out of life. So when I told them and using your stuff that you've gone through as an example. So as they're becoming teenagers and speaking out about sexual assault and things that I went through when I was in my early 20s and even teens, just being honest about that. So they learn from your mistakes and learn from things that you've gone through, and especially with boys and girls, they're thinking about how when they get in a certain situation, they're like, oh, mom went through this, or mom taught me about this, in a roundabout way, instead of like, don't do this, or, it's more like, okay, my mom went through this, so I understand. So they've been my biggest supporters. They've been so awesome, and just, I mean, I couldn't have done it without them, to be really honest, without their support, because they're basically all I had. When I was speaking out, like I said, I had friends and family that just dropped off. The boyfriend, during that time, I was ready to start speaking out about what I went through with Jeffrey Epstein, which was like this crazy story. And he just literally just looked at me. I was like, I don't want to hear about it.
Wow.
No, I don't want to hear about it.
I don't want to hear about it. Like, I see later on told me, oh, I thought he was like a playboy and maybe you had this like sugar daddy relationship. I'm like, no.
Well, like, are you listening?
Nothing to do with it.
But are you listening to me? Or are you,
No.
you just drew a picture that you wanted to, that was like for him?
I guess so. I mean, I realized in that moment, the relationship that I had with him for those 3 years wasn't even a relationship. He never even asked me anything about myself. Ever. He knew nothing about me, so why would he want to know something deeper about me?
Right.
It was a very surface relationship, shallow, surfacey relationship, and I realized I was probably just an object to him at that point. Didn't really want to get to know me, and so when you start speaking out about these kind of things, like you said, when you open up, a lot of kind of who your real, true friends are at that moment. Yeah, it's not easy to speak out.
Oh, no, I think that you're
or...
so incredibly brave, especially because of, I guess, the power that your abuser yields and the people that he's connected with who are, I'm sure, quivering in their boots still in this moment and trying to see how much does this person know? Who did he tell? There's a lot of fear-mongering that I'm sure, I don't know if you've experienced that, that want to silence women like you.
Oh, sure.
So I commend you for continuing and not only just continuing, like creating a platform where people can share their stories. If you guys haven't checked out her podcast, make sure you go check out From Now On Pod. It's such a powerful place for people, especially who have experienced any sort of sexual assault, or just want information on how to be able to identify it, protect themselves, protect your kids. I think that it starts so young, and it starts so like, it's like these little micro aggressions that happen that end. Then one day you wake up and you're like, what the fuck? How did I get here? And I think that it's important for us to educate ourselves, our boys too. That's why I'm really happy to hear how supportive your sons are, because like the boys, like they really need to understand how much power they have in that dynamic, the masculine over the feminine in that way.
Or even just knowing consent.
And consent, the asking, the consent piece is
I always say that. Because a lot of times just by educating our kids, you can change so many things that happen to women, young women, just the consent part. If a woman's clammed up like this, she's probably not into you. Maybe a woman needs to be touching you, instigating, starting things, then she's into you. But if a woman's all clammed up like this, maybe you should stop.
Yeah,
maybe she's uncomfortable, she just can't say so.
Yeah, and that consent isn't just the words.
No.
Yeah, really being able to, read the room, read body language, and get your desires out of the fucking way.
Yes.
Because I think that's what a lot of times what happens is like, okay, but like I really want to do this right now. Like she'll enjoy it once we get in there. And it's really unfortunate. So thank you. Do you have an affirmation that you can share with our audience?
Well, I do my personal affirmations. I don't know if it'll work for everybody. But for me, I like the sound of my name when I say affirmations, because when someone says it to me, it does something for me, because I grew up like not really hearing my name in a loving way. It was only like Lisa Ann Phillips, when you're in trouble. So I always say what I want to hear, what I want other people to say to me that don't, right? And I'm proud of you, Lisa.
I'm proud of you, Lisa.
I'm proud of you, Lisa.
Yes, I'm proud of you. And also, you're worthy of everything that you want.
You're worthy of everything that you want, Erica.
You're worthy of everything that you want, Mila.
And you're very powerful.
And you're very powerful, Erica. Yes.
So those are the 3 that I say most often to myself.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes like under my breath, like if someone can't hear me and I'm walking through like Home Goods or something. But if you sometimes you catch yourself in a mirror, sometimes you just want to say that and remind yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because it's throughout the day. It's not always just like in the morning in the mirror.
No.
I like the name. Like I like personalizing it for you
Personalize it.
because sometimes it needs to not be general. You need to know it's for you. So
Yeah, a lot of times when you personalize it, you get the emotions come up.
it shifts the
shifts
energy.
it.
You're not just saying a thing. You're saying it to you. I like that.
Yeah, me too. Well, before we get out of here, I would love if you pulled a card for tarot time.
Oh boy.
The Emperor.
The Emperor.
It already sounds good.
Yeah, he looks powerful. He looks like he's yielding his power for good, it seems. The Emperor. And shout out to Biddy Terror. Not Terror.
Sure. But it's her.
Shout out to Biddy Tarot. It's Black-owned tarot, a female-founded, mama-owned tarot brand. So make sure you check out, what did I just call them? Mahogany. I called them Biddy Tarot.
No.
Mahogany Tarot.
Shout out to Biddy, who we always read the definitions
Shout out to
from.
Mahogany
Mahogany
Tarot is what I'm talking about. Okay.
Okay, the Emperor. As the father figure of the tarot deck, the Emperor suggests that you are adopting this fatherly role, regardless of whether you're male or female, providing for your family, protecting and defending your loved ones or yourself. You may be the breadwinner or the rock for those who rely on your stability and security. Similarly, the Emperor represents a powerful leader who demands respect and authority. Status, power, and recognition are essential to you, and you are most comfortable in leadership role where you can command and direct others. As a leader, you rule with a firm but fair hand. You have a clear vision of what you want to create, and you organize those around you to manifest your goal. You listen to the advice of others, but you prefer to have the final say. Conflict doesn't scare you, and you won't hesitate to use your power to protect those you care about. And in return, those people will repay you with the loyalty and respect you deserve. Claim your authority as leader and influencer, and don't let others put you down. It reflects a system bound by rules and regulations. You create law and order by applying principles or guidelines to a specific situation. Create calm out of chaos by breaking down any problems into its parts and then mapping out the actions you need to take to resolve it. Be systematic, strategic, and highly organized in your approach, and stick to your plan until the end.
Wow.
I love that. Seeing everything out to the end is so important.
It says, through the course of your life, you have gained valuable wisdom and life experience, and now you enjoy offering guidance, advice, and direction to someone who might benefit from it.
Yep, that's what I do.
You may be a teacher, coach, boss, or a good friend who likes to take what you have learned and pass it on to others so they can be wise and as powerful as you.
Wow, I love that. I picked a good card.
You did.
And I have been the breadwinner for my kids. I've raised my kids all by myself.
It picked you, baby.
3 boys.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah.
For real. And honestly, like I want to say to you, like, yes, I'm in awe of the work that you've done and like the pivot that you've taken, and that you said shit's going to shift and I'm going to say what I need to say, and taking your power back. And also just like, I think this, I've been saying this for a while, but I really genuinely believe like this is the resurrection of the feminine, of the women. I think there's like a power that we're getting back right now universally. And I think that it's time. It's time. I think a lot of us have suffered at the hands of the patriarchy. And I think we're all like getting our voice back and like getting on our feet. And like, I think the men that have thrived and, you know, from the abuse of women, it's over for you bitches.
Ooh, I like that.
And I think like
It is over.
it's over for you bitches.
Sorry.
For real, like brace
Done.
yourself.
Time's up.
Because when as we come back into our power, as we're resurrecting, we're coming back from the ashes, like it's going to be impossible for you to hurt us. It's going to be impossible because we're here together, because we're in community, because we're using our voice, and because this is what we're supposed to do historically anyway. And now that we're coming back into that power, like it's done.
Yeah,
Ashe,
stop
ashe.
here.
Yeah.
And I want to say to you, Mila, I'm really proud of you for sharing this, your testimony and your story, because I know this is something that you've been kind of suffering in silence, not kind of, you've been suffering with for a while now. And so I'm really proud of you for feeling brave enough to share that.
Thank you.
So I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
Yeah.
How do you feel after sharing that?
I feel good. I feel like it's just the beginning. Like I have to work through all the things, and I'm still working through it, I want everyone else listening to know that this kind of shit takes time.
Yes.
It's not like an overnight.
It's 2 years.
Yeah, years. Like it's a commitment to shift, and it's a commitment to doing things differently. And if you've done things a certain way, it's going to take time to uncover all of those habits. And no one's perfect or experts at healing or exactly. My healing looks different from yours and yours and yours. And just like, I really want to encourage everyone to just stick the course. And even when it gets difficult and take breaks, rest, but then go back to it and understand that like, that's where the power lies. Look at Lisa, literally your power lies with spreading the word about the things that you've experienced so that other people feel empowered to do the same thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Okay.
I made that really good.
Yes. Lisa, where can our audience find you?
Let's see here. So I'm on Instagram, and I am Lisa Phillips. Also, my podcast From Now On is on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you go tap into Lisa's podcast. And I think it's such an important space you've created, like I said. So thank you for the work that you're doing. You guys know where to find us, or if you don't, make sure you go follow us on Instagram at goodmoms_bad_choices. Make sure that you tap into our retreats. We have the Good Vibe retreat coming up this summer. We have a couples retreat in June. We have 2 women's retreats in July and August. And rate and review this episode. If you haven't rated and reviewed this episode, please do. It really makes the difference for us. We've been at this for 7 years, and we should have a lot more reviews on Apple. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Review. You get this shit for free. That's pay in subscriptions and comments. And even if you hate it, say that shit. But just whatever you do, before you fucking hang up this phone, after we've given you 2 hours of our life, subscribe. Hit a comment, and thank you. We appreciate it.
And make sure you check out our merch. I don't even like calling it merch. It's our clothing line.
Our designs.
On our website, goodmomsbadchoices.com. If you're not a patron yet, what are you doing? Join Patreon. You get all of our YouTube episodes early. You get everything early. And on top of that, you get bonus episodes and access to our Discord, which is direct access to us, really, and our entire community, where we're talking even more candidly than on Instagram, because Instagram are the ops.
And find a friend. Find a friend in the Discord in your city. If you want your Erica to your Mila, go on Patreon. Go on Patreon to get in Discord and find people in your city, because I know moms get lonely and, women get lonely. And we have a really beautiful, I feel like, tribe of come as you are. It's a judgment-free zone. Whoever you are, it's like a safe space to be who you are. And you find a friend who's going to accept you as is. That's one thing I really love about our community. It's like free and loving, and we offer support just for free. So come and vent and find a friend.
Yes. It's $10 a month, and it's worth every fucking penny. So patreon.com/goodmomsbadchoices, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm living so good, can't you tell? I went through a drought, that's until I found a well. Made my heaven on earth, I used to be broke as hell. Now I got the blues dancing like Beyonce